Hey, welcome back to Build Mode. I'm your host, Isabelle Johannesen, and today I'm here with the producer of Build Mode, Maggie Nye. Maggie, what has been the most requested topic for Build Mode?
Well, that would be fundraising, and I just can't imagine why, because it's not very important in a startup journey.
Not important at all. Who needs money?
Oh, well, it also just so happens that our next season will be covering fundraising from all kinds of angles. We have had a monster recording session, and we are going to have a bunch of episodes coming your way discussing how you can fundraise, how you can pitch, how you can do all of the things. But for today, Isabelle, what are we talking about?
Today, we will be sharing a clip episode that Maggie has compiled of all of the best tips from our VC guests over the last 2 seasons.
Yes, we're getting so much good advice. We're going to be learning what it's like to sit on the other side of the table and how founders can not only make sure they're landing the investor, but that the investors they're landing are actually the best fit for their startup. So on that note, to start off, we're hearing from Yuri Sagalov, the managing director at General Catalyst. He's worked with hundreds of early stage startups, and in this clip, he shares how to spot and avoid the backseat founder types of investors.
I've always thought that there are 3 buckets of investors. And the first bucket of investors are investors who you really want on your cap table, who are just like, they're going to be almost an extended employee of your company. They're going to help you with recruiting. They're going to help you with hiring. They're going to help you with go-to-market. And the most interesting thing with those investors is often it's actually completely disconnected from the check size. They might be a $5,000 investor or a $5 million investor. It's really up to the partner or the angel investor themselves. The second type of investor that you have is kind of an investor that gives you money and then disappears, and maybe they'll reply to an email once every couple of months saying congrats, and you just don't hear much from them. And they're actually fine as well, especially as you're trying to fill out your round. Obviously, if you can get the first category, focus on those. And then the only bucket that I avoid, especially for early founders, is like there's this third bucket of investors who they give you money and they're kind of in your kitchen meddling. They have an opinion on everything. They get stressed out when things don't go right, which at every startup is always. And that is the only type of investor that I would like actively like steer free of. Everyone else, like obviously if you can get the very first bucket, I think that's ideal. But the only one that I would truly avoid is that like third category.
I guess, I wonder if it's sort of hard for founders to tell the difference between, a VC that is promoting the fact that they will be involved and they have support and structure in place versus those who will be sort of micromanaging, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think that everyone, when they're looking to invest, is going to put on their best face. And so I think the best thing you can do as a founder is actually talk to portfolio companies, talk to other founders that they've worked with, ask for concrete examples of how they've been helpful, if they've been helpful, and then actually ask like how they were when things didn't go right, And you really just want to know that they're supportive, that they understand that things might not work out the way you want them to. And you'll hear like you'll talk to some founders and you'll hear some investors are just amazing. They were like the first phone call when something didn't go right. They felt like a trusted source to brainstorm on how to fix it. And other investors, you'll hear the feedback from founders where they'll say like, I just couldn't bring myself to call this investor. And that's the type of person that I think you really kind of want to dodge.
So that's one type of investor you probably want to avoid, but what about the investors you want to attract? In the next clip, we're going to hear from Ross Fubini from XYZ Ventures and Leslie Feinzaig from Graham & Walker about how they've each thought through their unique value add and how they use that to set up their portfolio companies for success.
To your point of things that you've changed, something you just said there really stuck out is I struggled in our early funds understanding what was my unique point of view.
Yeah.
And it's because I didn't just want to be a banker that happened to show up early. And now when we talk to founders and when we talk to LPs, but really founders, the thing that I now feel very confident telling them is the thing that we are best at. Well, that we only really have one job. And so our job is to raise the next round of funding for the founders. And because my lived experience now, years in, is that the founders are always experts in their company, but having a unique voice at the table that both understands what's going on in the company, but then is intimate what's happening in the venture ecosystem. So you can understand, hey, if you don't have an AI story, oh my God, it's going to be hard just to stand out right now in this market. so find one that's authentic. Or everybody believes you can land for 30K. Let's put all of our energy in the next 4 months, 8 months, proving that 3 of these companies can expand to 300K. So you can have the ASP expansion or other more and less nuanced examples. They're not, hey, I'm going to text Mark Andreessen, he's going to think it's cool, but really you're actually plotting the path of the company with the founders from when you invest going forward. I found, I did not expect that, but that's a very unique role to offer them. And then I felt now I feel very comfortable that's our value prop. And I'm just curious, you said that shifted for you over time, and I'm curious if you went through a similar shift in, oh no, this is what is unique that we do in the world.
I'm just going to be really honest, because almost ironically, I have found that one of our biggest value adds is the ability to have an authentic conversation with a founder. With the majority of their investors, or actually the majority of the world out there, they have to kind of put on a show. And I like to take a very similar approach to you, Ross, in that like having a VC on your cap table that is a founder, is an operator, is like well plugged in, but has a really high tolerance for the ugly, messy business of building a company and like what it actually looks like and feels like to have the sausage made. Like sometimes I look at other VCs that I admire or not, right? Like these like really, really successful VCs. And to Ross's point, like they are financiers, like they are deal makers. And I am not. Like I am very much a builder. And that's kind of what I bring to the table. But for me, discovering that, feeling confident and comfortable with that, and also just growing as, learning how to do the job and like getting a lot of reps in and like seeing a lot of deal flow. Because I feel like in the very early days, everything you see looks amazing, and because you just haven't seen enough. And so I mean, I still feel like I'm a baby VC, right? Like I'm on my second fund, and I've had the, let's call it luck and hard work, etc. But the luck of having spent my time in VC through like really dramatic shocks in the ecosystem and having that be my learning experience. I almost feel like this is what the VCs that went through the 2001 crash and the 2008 crash would have learned. I feel like that has been my school of venture capital, is like seeing market behavior at the tippy top of the market and seeing what happens like, a month later when the vibe changed. The good news for my LPs and for myself is that I have like the stubbornness of a middle child who doesn't like to be told what to do. And so I've like never been one to play into FOMO. But I feel like, if you kind of start investing and learn how to invest at the tippy top of the market, you're just going to like throw your entire fund into like buzzy Web3 crap, right? Like, and I've like had the privilege to see all of that. And that has been my formation as a VC. And then on the flip side, it's just like you look at, so much of the model is like, especially when you're investing early, is like helping those companies cross the chasm into raising their next round, or just like getting the credentials so that they're believed in the next round. And I feel like I've gone through that journey myself as a VC. So I still feel like I'm super, super close to the founder experience.
This episode is all about getting a peek behind the VC curtain. So in the next clip, Paul Irving from GTMfund shares the biggest red flag his team looks out for and his best advice for founders to signal they've nailed their go-to-market strategy.
What are some red flags you would look for that might signal that a company may not have the chops to win in this distribution moat that they need to build in order to succeed these days?
I think the one for us that stands out, I'll mention two, but the top one is, in a competitive market, having a non-differentiated go-to-market motion in the early days is always difficult, because you're often going to go up against either incredibly well-funded incumbents or soon-to-be very well-funded competitors, and just using the old playbooks, tried and true, same channels that everybody else is tackling, and not having anything that's unique to your company and where you believe you can win, I think is usually a red flag. And sometimes for founders, it's, a great LinkedIn presence and thought leadership. Sometimes it's a newsletter that they built up and a sort of an internal earned and built distribution channel that they can tap into. But we looked for, I would say, earned secrets in why a team founded a company and why they're going to win. And then the other one is, I think contracts is a very interesting area these days where there's a lot of 3-month easy opt-out trial contracts that are getting booked and treated from a company perspective as, earned and booked ARR. And I think there's no problem if enterprises, do want to have a trial period as part of, their buying cycle. That can happen in a variety of different corners of software in the industry. But you want teams to understand that and understand the levers of that and understand how to renew and expand those contracts when the trial period comes to an end, and have a strategy to manage those.
And speaking of some of these competitors that might have more capital, as you were mentioning, so what advice would you give to a founder who has extremely limited resources and can only focus on maybe 2 go-to-market initiatives? What should those be?
It will go back to something that I mentioned a little bit earlier, but I do believe it's an AI native specificity of data and execution that you can do. And it's narrowing down your ICP. So something that you can do now that was really hard to do historically. And I'll give another shout out to Jordan, because he just did a launch, Jordan Crawford digital launch, where he's building agents in Claude Code that build Clayagents for your Clay tables, which is a few different layers of AI native go-to-market. But what it does is, instead of having a ICP that's very deterministic, where you say, greater than 500 employees, launched an AI product in the US and the EU, has usage-based pricing, you can get really specific with, recently launched within the last couple of months, an AI product, like has a pricing and packaging page that doesn't line up with best practices for pricing, which is if you're talking about your team internally, those are the contextual, non-deterministic ways you talk about your ICP, but they're really hard to program into a go-to-market motion. And I think there's more options than ever to really explore your ICP, become very AI native and data forward with the way that you approach it, and come up with, start spearfishing for the right customers, because you can't, you don't have the resources to throw, hundreds of thousands of dollars into paid ads, different channels, 1,000 different tools. But if you focus on the data, you focus on your ICP, and you build an AI native go-to-market engine, I think there's a lot you can get out of that for a pretty limited capital investment at the outset.
So far, we've really covered the courting stages of a VC founder relationship. But in our next clip, Leah Solivan, the founder and former CEO of TaskRabbit and current founder of Precedent Venture, talks about her biggest lessons going from a venture-backed founder to a VC in her own right. And a little spoiler alert, this insight can help founders ensure that they continue to get funded.
What was surprising to you about being on the other side of the table now as a VC?
So much. I was surprised by so much. I think the number one thing that was the biggest surprise was when I was running TaskRabbit, I was always nervous about the competition. And the competition were, Zarly and Homejoy and, Thumbtack and Handy and all these companies popping up that were doing the same thing as us. Oh, these companies are going to fast follow. We were the first, and now they're copying us. And that was like the obsession around competition. Now I realize as an investor that I should have been more interested / concerned about what was the competition in my investors' portfolio. Because my investor is actually making decisions about where to put their money next. And it has nothing to do with the competition in my industry. But as an example, Anne went on to invest in Lyft. Rob Hayes at First Round went on to invest in Uber. Steve Anderson at Baseline went on to invest in Instagram. So I'm now TaskRabbit in a portfolio with Lyft, Uber, and Instagram. Do you think I'm the one that's going to get their extra dollars? Or are they going to put them in Lyft, Uber, and Instagram, right? Like it's just a matter of like what are the rocket ship deals? What are the rocket ship companies? And if you're in a portfolio of one of those, I think it's helpful to understand that your competition for dollars are those companies.
Well, that does it for this Best of Build Mode episode. Thank you so much for sticking with us. We cannot wait to share season 3 with you. So be sure that you have subscribed to this podcast wherever you listen. Make sure to check us out on TechCrunch's YouTube and share your favorite episode with a friend, your family, your coworker, maybe even your investor. All right, we will see you back in this feed very soon with Season 3.
Build Mode is a TechCrunch podcast. Each episode is produced and edited by Maggie Nye and hosted by me, Isabelle Johannesen. Our art and design is also by Maggie Nye. A big thanks to Morgan Little, who leads our audience development, the Foundry and Cheddar video teams, and most of all to you, the builders, and everyone else in the wider startup community. We'll see you back here next time.